Alright guys, we're gonna replace the carburetor on this backpack blower. It's a Husqvarna 58 BFS, pretty big unit, and when you accelerate it full throttle it bogs down. So let's take a look at the tools we need. So you need a 5/16. This is a little tiny screwdriver to pop a cover off where the throttle is. Phillips screwdriver. Needle nose, and I don't know if in here, we'll take a look when we take this cover off to see what's holding the carburetor on. So the first thing you got to do is take this clamp off, which is a 5/16 and then a 5/16, and get this air intake off. And then we're going to have some Phillips screws holding the plate on. Alright, and then these are Torx bits. It's a T27. And you'll see the air cleaner snorkel housing will come off. Then you're going to pop this cover off. You can see the little tab right here. Get the screwdriver underneath that. You got to release that little tab right there. And then push up on it on this side. It'll loosen the cover up. They'll just slide right off. See this little white cover? That little white cover pops off. You can see it just sits right over those little two tabs in the back here is what holds it over the cable. And then you can push the throttle forward. You'll see the cable come out and you can lift it up out of the cavity. Once you get it out of the throttle, you can see here, this little doodad will spin. And there's a wider opening there for the cable. So if this turns around on you, you won't get the cable in all the way. You'll see the little nub stick out. So make sure you get this going in the right direction when you go to put it back. And then the cable itself will just slide out the back like that. And now you might want to take a picture. You make sure you remember where your hoses go. Because one's the fuel feed and one's your primer bulb. And with this here, you can sometimes get it down with your hand. If not, use a pair of pliers. You can use a screwdriver if they're real tight. You gotta put the camera down. And there's your carburetor. We'll put the new one on, but we're also going to pop this out. Look at the lines. This is just a rubber grommet. You just want to make sure there's no dirt that can fall in there. You can use a rag to clean this area out. Also use compressed air. Spray it out real easy, make sure you don't get dirt in there. And you can get the screwdriver underneath it and pry it up. And the line will come out. And you see the filters on the other side. When you go to put the new line in, spray it with some WD-40. It'll help you squish the grommet back in. And get it 3/4 of the way in and walk the first part of the grommet into the tank until it seats all the way. You can put a little WD on the bracket right there. Let's check what we got for gaskets. Here's how your gasket goes with the two holes facing down the bottom. So the first thing we can do is put the lines on. Put a little WD if the line fights you. It'll slide right on. And then you can use tiny zip ties. That's what I like to do because those metal clamps are a little bit tough to work with. And you can use two to hold and pull it tight. There you go. Now you want to hold the gasket on there and at the same time put your lines through, your bolts rather, through the case. You know, hold your gasket on there. Pull your lines up a little bit if it doesn't line up. Tighten up your Torx. You can leave them a little loose. We have some room to put the cable in. Just like that, and remember this right here, we got to turn it, make sure the big hole's facing out, and then you hold this open with your one hand, feed the cable in with the other. I don't know if I can do it with one hand. Yeah, there we go. And the key is you got to make sure this nub is inside of it, like so. There we go. And then remember the little white cover? Those two little tips, they go over the cable side. So you just put them on, lock it on there. Until it lines up, it'll clip right in. And then you remember the cover. You see this part right here goes over this, and then it should just snap right in. There you go. Now you can finish tightening up these. You could actually also put the cable on beforehand if you want. Doesn't really matter. See, this is a little tight, so I'll pull the hose up a little bit. There we go. And then the last thing we put back on is the cage. All right. And now we want to change the air cleaner. Got these little tabs, there's 4 of them on either side. Sometimes they can be tough to get off. And use a little screwdriver. And then there's 2 on the back side. So on the upper side of the cover, there's a foam gasket. And the kit I got off Amazon came with a new one. I'll put that in. And then the air cleaner just sits in this cavity up here. Make sure all 4 corners are in. Just like so. And the red part of the filter faces up. Put your cover back on. Make sure everything lines up. Make sure your clips aren't in the way in the back. So these clips can be a pain. What you want to do is squeeze down with one hand. And then when you're pushing, kind of push in the middle. It'll actually expand the clip up and it'll pop right up over it. Here's the boot for the spark plug. Kind of just pop it off. It's a 5/8 socket. You kind of need a shallow one. See if your socket will fit in there. And then just get a ratchet. Break this free. I'm sure you can see a gap on your plug. It wasn't dropped at the factory, and if this little gap is touching the spark plug, it's not going to work. And you can put a little WD-40 on the threads. It'll help you thread it back in there. When the threads are dry, it can kind of catch and sometimes make it difficult for you to tell if you got it in or not. So once you start turning it a little bit, lift it up to see if you actually caught the threads and you're not just sitting there spinning. That way you won't cross thread them. When you go to tighten it, you'll feel it get tight for a little bit, but you got to keep going because that's just crushing the seating washer. So just keep going until it stops, and then you're good to go. Put a little WD-40 on the inside of your spark plug boot so it gets on there and you hear a click. The click is the metal part inside the boot catching onto the spark plug. Now we can put the air filter boot back on. Same thing, put a little WD-40 on the boot. It'll make it easier for it to slide on, especially if it's an old boot. It's a little easier to put the top one on first. And you want to get this boot in as far as you can and then force this one up from the bottom a little bit to get over that, over the bottom piece. Now we just tighten up the clamps and we're good to go. We can see if it'll fire up.